How many reveals can one chapter have? We've got the next Seraphim, the introduction of all the remaining Vegapunks, and a big twist about Egghead Island's history. Let's get to it. We open outside Egghead Records on the lab stratum. Instead of following the main group, we are hanging back with Zoro and Brook. The two pirates talk for a bit, revealing why they didn't join the rest of the crew and going to the laboratory. Besides not being all that interested in technology, Zoro points out the obvious facts. As wacky as Egghead is, it is still a government island. Vegapunk is sort of willing to deal with the Straw Hats, but someone should hang back, ready to break the crew out if things go wrong. Make that when things go wrong. It is the Straw Hats after all. It's fun to see Zoro get this genre savvy, and a good reminder of how long he has been doing this. Our crew knows what to expect on their adventure by now. Brook agrees with the wisdom of this plan, offering to share a cup of tea with his first mate. They have to pass the time somehow while they wait for things to go to hell. The two can barely take a sip, however, before being interrupted by a strange arrival. Caribou. The Mudman has finally emerged from his barrel. He's trying to play things smoothly, like he was supposed to be aboard. He must have figured out that now, with most of the crew gone, this was the perfect time to bluff his way into safety. He brings up the request he made to Luffy to drop him off anywhere but Wano, noting that when he said that, he didn't mean a government island. He is a pirate after all. He's wanted by the Marines. Surely the Straw Hats will let him stick around with them until they reach somewhere more friendly, right? Zoro isn't buying it for a second. He thanked Caribou for helping Luffy back on Wano right before telling him to get off the Sunny. And he's grinning as he says it, all too aware of what is probably in store for a wanted pirate outside. Caribou does not object out loud, but there are tears in the Mudman's eyes as he leaves the ship. Things are probably not gonna go so well for him on Egghead. The rest of the crew is just now heading up towards the laboratory. Nami and Usopp are both freaking out over the escalator. It's fun to see the parents so hyped up about something that is so simple to our modern world. Their enthusiasm is downright infectious. It almost feels like we're back into classic One Piece now. There's that sense of exploration, finding something new and wondrous. And the Straw Hats haven't even gotten through the door to Vegapunk's lab yet. We're getting hyped up just watching them get so excited over the moving stairs, so what could be in the lab proper? Frankie asks Vegapunk Lilith what the island uses as a power source. Lilith is a bit evasive. She simply notes that the island was using fire to keep things running. After all, you can get fire from many sources. Frankie notes that this has to burn through a ton of natural resources, which Punk Lilith does not deny. That's just one more part of Egghead's operating budget. Instead, she muses about the prospect of an eternal flame. If there was some kind of fire that didn't go out, they could tap it indefinitely. With that, she claims she could make her own sun. This feels like foreshadowing. Is Lilith going to try to hook Luffy up to a battery? I mean, we've got the US government trying that over in Jujutsu Kaisen, so it could happen. Anyway, while pondering that, she just steps right through the laboratory door. Someone starts hailing the Vegapunk on her comm, even as the Straw Hats are yelling at her to explain what just happened. Lilith just orders the group to walk through the cast iron door, claiming they shouldn't let their senses fool them. She strolls off, talking to the figure on the comm, who she identifies as Edison. So she is talking to another Vegapunk. Sanji is the first member of the crew to slide his head through the laboratory door. Robin follows after him, and soon, the Straw Hats are all on the other side. Usopp checks the door after they're through, noting that now it is somehow solid metal again. He asks out loud how this works, but the rest of the crew are distracted by the lab. Well, Frankie and Robin are focused on the lab. Sanji is just looking for Lilith. Before the crew can worry about where their guide has gotten to, someone starts talking to the Straw Hats over the speaker system. They've got a hefty drawl to their voice and identify themselves as Vegapunk Edison. The pirates shouldn't worry about that though. They should just keep going straight ahead into a room that is totally not a trap. The rest of the crew are happy to go along with that, either lacking Zoro's common sense or blinded by the love of cool, futuristic technology. Nami is almost as hyped up as Frankie about this place. There are stars in her eyes and she speculates about potentially finding some kind of future treasure, like a flower made of beautiful gems. Usopp notes that is quite a strange fantasy, muttering that he can't tell if Nami has a taste of a child or an old woman. This causes the navigator to give Longnotes a sharp future kick for the insult. The rest of the crew barely notices, however. They have finally reached the room Vegapunk Edison was directing them towards, the big iron doors slowly clanking open. And what they found in there was something none of the Straw Hats could have expected. Jinbei? Sitting in a meditative pose beneath a gigantic vat of liquid marked Seraphim 04, there are more vats and monitors behind him. This is almost certainly the Seraphim production facility. To the crew's credit, they immediately noticed something was up with this version of the helmsman. For one thing, he's younger than before. However, given how many wacky adventures they've gone through, it is hard for the Straw Hat crew to work out exactly what's going on here. No one told them about the world government's newest super weapon. Usopp throws out the guess that this may be Jinbei's son. Reasonable idea, especially given his own background with a seafaring father. Nami speculates that Jinbei may have been turned into a kid. And hey, with Bonnie running around the island, that's a really good guess. Sanji throws out option 3. It is just purely a coincidence. This is somehow a completely unrelated fishman that happens to look just like Jinbei. This is somehow both the smartest and dumbest option out of all the three. This kid has a different skin tone and hair color from their friend, and is sporting a pair of jet black wings. It makes sense to go with the idea that this is not Jinbei. At the same time, Punk Edison directed the group to this room specifically. It is very unlikely that they just happened to find someone who looks like their friend. Vegapunk is clearly up to something with this. Resolving to finally settle the question, the crew calls out to Seraphim Jinbei, asking him directly who he is. The young fishman does not answer them, simply rising to his feet. We get a better look at the flame over the base of his back as he stands tall. We're so used to seeing Jinbei as his friendly, lighthearted guy that it is strange to see Seraphim Jinbei here. He looks surprisingly intimidating at this moment. Frankie starts to recognize what is going on as her new friend brings an arm up with light forming around it. Somehow, this creature is a pacifista, a point Seraphim Jinbei is happy to prove by blasting the hell out of the group. Hopefully the Vegapunks are ready for some more property damage. Usopp is on his feet quickly, happy to let his paranoia run away with him. Clearly this was all a trap. There was no way the world government was ever going to roll out the red carpet for the Straw Hats. Nami wonders if this means the world government is using clones of Jinbei as soldiers now. They have seen plenty of Kuma pacifistas, now it's going to be a whole Jinbei line instead? Either way, this figure looks like a kid. Nami readies her weapon, but admits she doesn't really want to fight this guy. Unfortunately, Seraphim Jinbei does not share the same sentiment. The guy beefs, accessing some new function before he melts into the ground? Most of the Straw Hats don't know what to make of this. Frankie, however, calls out that he remembers seeing this ability before. Indeed, he has fought against someone with similar powers. The Jinbei Seraphim has somehow been given the same floor surfing capability as the Sui Sui no Mi, the devil fruit that Senor Pink used back in Dressrosa. If Senor Pink is not just outright dead, Vegapunk has replicated a devil fruit perfectly, and a complex one at that. And so, have the 6 paths of Punk made some kind of breakthrough since Punk Hazard? And how did Vegapunk get access to Senor Pink's lineage factor to replicate his devil fruit? Regardless, I must say this is a brilliant devil fruit to give this Seraphim, simply because it does have the body of Jinbei, and Jinbei is an incredible swimmer. Regardless, the young Jinbei charges towards Nami, surfing through the floor as if it were the ocean. Frankie calls out, recognizing what their enemy is up to. Unfortunately, he is too late. Jinbei emerges swiftly, clutching at Nami's throat. The navigator pleads with him, calling out his name. Unfortunately, the Seraphim does not recognize her. It just keeps staring with those cold star eyes as it wrings the life out of the navigator. These things are vicious. That's enough to make Sanji snap. One look at his face is enough to see his overwhelming anger. As far as he's concerned, attacking Nami means Jinbei has 100% signed his own death warrant. Even if this was the original, he would not forgive this. Furious, he launches forward with a powerful flaming kick to the teenage Jinbei's torso. It's enough to send the cyborg fishman back against the wall, freeing Nami from his grip. Before the Seraphim can get to his feet, however, Robin steps up. She isn't going to sit idle while Sanji fights Mecha Teen Jinbei alone, and she is just as angry about what happened to Nami. She goes for Gigante Fleur, last seen in her fight against Black Maria. She brings the smackdown hard on Seraphim Jinbei, laying into him with multiple gigantic palm strikes. These hit with enough force to knock the fishman back against the tank. Unfortunately, the water only helps the Seraphim regain some strength. It springs back, charging right at Robin with a powerful fishman karate strike. Usopp yells at her to get away, going for a lethal green star shot. The explosion covered the room in smoke briefly, giving the sniper a second to catch his breath. He's not feeling so great. Usopp knows this isn't really Jinbei, but he looks just like him. Having to attack your friend with this kind of force is pretty messed up. Unfortunately, when the smoke clears, Seraphim Jinbei is nowhere in sight. Usopp looks around, trying to locate their foe, but it is too late. The pacifista jumps out of the wall behind him, like a shark emerging from the ocean. Jinbei wraps his arm around Usopp's neck, trapping the unfortunate marksman in a tight headlock. Sanji is ready to tackle this overly persistent threat again. However, Frankie claims the next shot, asking Usopp to not move as he charges up the Frankie Radical Beam. He locks his sight right at the threatening Seraphim as he fires a massive blast right at it. No matter how precise lasers are, it is hard to imagine a shot that big not hurting Usopp at least a little bit. Still, before that can happen, we cut away to someone watching the battle on a monitor. It is here that we actually get to meet Dr. Vegapunk Edison. He looks like a robotic form of a Toriyama alien wearing some kind of armor. It's hard to imagine that this cute little robot led these Straw Hats into this ambush. Right now though, he's freaking out a bit. He hadn't expected Frankie to fire a laser at these Seraphim. They're just prototypes after all. Their development plan clearly states that they aren't supposed to shoot lasers at this teenage unit until next week at least. This is much riskier than he expected. Lilith has joined him now, and she's angry about this whole affair. Even one Seraphim is ruinously expensive to develop. Seeing it wrecked has to be frustrating for the Vegapunk most focused on acquiring money. If this battle goes too far, it will cost Egghead Island a fortune. She is ready to bust skulls the next chance she gets. Edison tries to caution her against getting too violent, but the bot is almost immediately distracted. He has just had an idea for a new invention. That is apparently enough to make him forget all his worries about the Straw Hats potentially wrecking a highly valuable military prototype. Instead, the little punk flies off with a cat to get to work. He passes his fight monitoring duties off to his brother, Dr. Vegapunk Pythagoras. This big guy appears to be a classic tokusatsu robot Robocon, only now with a neat jacket. It's a bit of a more detailed design, but it is a cool shout out all the same. Pythagoras is happy to take over, noting that data like this doesn't come along every day. Edison, meanwhile, is already at his drawing board, sketching out blueprints one after another. He is working at a feverish pace. The ideas won't stop coming. As such, he asks Vegapunk York to eat something for him. The good doctor is only too happy to oblige, chowing down on a burger and hot dog immediately. We see the lab assistants scurrying around her, already on their way with a wheelbarrow full of seconds. All this food looks gigantic. It's clear York is on the big side, and she's planted herself on a nice fluffy cushion. She's clearly been eating for the other punks for a while. Pythagoras has been busy studying the battle. He's already made some key observations about the Jinbei Seraphim. It has managed to develop new fighting patterns as it has grown. This suggests that the lineage factor was able to retain some skills and memories from a person's life. Even if this isn't the real Jinbei, he has the original's memories of learning Fishman karate, although apparently not from his memories of the Straw Hats. Pythagoras speculates about potentially accelerating the Seraphim's growth further, though he knows that there are obstacles towards that. Edison, meanwhile, has risen out of his suit? It appears Vegapunk Edison's true body is even smaller than what we witnessed, just being this little oval with arms and legs. The tiny punk still has a pen and paper, however. He is off to put those blueprints into action, eager to make some prototypes. But he has encountered a problem. Now that he has eaten, he needs the toilet. But he can't afford to waste time like that. Fortunately, that is also something that Dr. York can handle. The final member of Team Vegapunk strolls out of the bathroom with a grin, commenting on how that hit the spot. We cut through Pythagoras, Edison, and Atlas, showing that this has the same effect for all of them. Somehow, the Vegapunks all have their digestive systems linked, so York can take care of all of that for them. Having performed her function, Dr. York soon ends up falling happily asleep. The staff keeps bustling around her, noting that this is her fourth go around today. It seems that the Vegapunk Collective has outsourced most of the basic biological processes to Dr. York. Eating, the bathroom, and sleep. She takes care of all of that stuff while the other Vegapunks are busy with their relative duties. That is bizarre, even by One Piece standards. It's arguably a little bit horrifying. Imagine only living to eat and sleep while other people get to do all the fun stuff. That might even make Luffy stop enjoying food. But at the very least, she doesn't seem to really mind. Back over with the Straw Hats and Jinbei, the fight has ended. A new figure has entered the Seraphim's test chamber and ordered the cyborg to stand down. The Straw Hats are confused at this unexpected help. They're twice as confused when they realize that they suddenly can't move their legs. The stranger ignores them for the moment, walking over to doors marked with the numbers 5 and 6. Those look just like the door that led into Seraphim Jinbei's chamber. So, do those hold more Seraphim? Are we going to get 2 more angel kids this arc? Unfortunately, the stranger doesn't open them up just yet. Instead, he calls out to Lilith, Edison, and Pythagoras. He has gotten all he needed out of this brawl. The 3 must have had enough of it by now too, right? Pythagoras is disappointed at the sudden end of the fight, however. He was enjoying himself, watching the Seraphim go and gather research data for them. Lilith fumes at the intervention, decrying this scoundrel for intervening now. Edison hasn't even noticed that the fight is over. He is seemingly still distracted by inventing things. This begrudging acceptance is enough for the stranger. Turning back to the Straw Hats, he introduces himself properly. This is the final member of our friendly band of punks, Dr. Vegapunk Shaka. He is easily the coolest member of this lineup with his long coat and helmet. It is hard to tell if Oda is going for a tokusatsu reference here or more of a Daft Punk homage. Either way, we're here for it. Shaka already looks like a badass. Sanji asks what's going on with their shoes. Shaka explains that these high-tech boots can be disabled at any point as long as they are standing within the laboratory. He is not interested in killing the Straw Hats, but he knows better than to let his guard down when dealing with pirates. So no surprise he has a few safeguards like that. Usopp is still stuck on Shaka's introduction, however. He's Vegapunk? But they've already met two Vegapunks, the woman and the one on the speaker. Neither of them sounded like him. So in essence, he's Vegapunk, you're Vegapunk, I'm Vegapunk. Are there any other Vegapunks I should know about? Shaka confirms that Lilith and Edison were telling the truth. They are both Vegapunk. He is also simply a Vegapunk. At this point, someone really needs to share CP0's helpful diagram with the Straw Hats. Usopp dryly snarks that he forgot to tell the crew something. He is also a Vegapunk. And so if we're sticking with the fan theory that all of Usopp's lies will one day come true, that's going to be very interesting. For the moment though, Franky shuts it down, annoyed at the interruption. Vegapunk Shaka does not object. Instead, he poses a question to the Straw Hats. Do they think of this island as the future? Franky goes for the simple response, enthusiastically agreeing. Egghead has to be beyond the future. Their technology is amazing. The Mega Sea Beast, the Vega Force 1, and the Island Aircon. He is still excited about every last part of Egghead. Nami muses that she has never seen anything like this island before, while Franky keeps gushing towards Shaka. He wants a full tour of this entire facility. He would love to see everything here. As far as Franky's concerned, there is no way he and Vega-chan can't get along. Shaka-chan does not grant his wish just yet, however. Instead, the helmeted Vegapunk explains that Franky's answer is actually wrong. As far as he's concerned, Egghead Island is not 500 years in the future. It is an island rooted in the past. Franky is bewildered by that idea. Before we can get a firm answer, however, we move over to Luffy's group. Straw Hat, Bonnie, Chopper, and Jinbei are still in the scrapyard and have come upon something big. It's impressive enough to take all four pirates by surprise. As they gape, Shaka explains the truth to Franky. There was another civilization with technology comparable to Egghead Island. However, that realm has been lost to history. It existed 900 years ago. That would place it at the start of the Void Century. As Shaka finishes his explanation, we see what Luffy and his friends have discovered. They have stumbled across what seems to be another gigantic robot. It is covered with rust and moss and clearly suffered battle damage, but it still makes for quite an imposing figure. And man, does this thing bear a striking resemblance to oars. Those horns are pretty distinctive. Were these old robots based on ancient giants? Were the ancient giants actually part robot? Or is this thing just a hunk of armor rather than another mecha? So many burning questions, but either way, that is where we leave the chapter. This arc sure is not letting up. Now that these Straw Hats are with Shaka, hopefully they will start getting real answers. What was that ability that the Seraphim Jinbei used? Where has CP0 gotten to? How do you think Usopp will become the 7th Vegapunk? Throw out your ideas in the comments section down below. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.